My name is Rachel Bingham. I'm the Executive Officer of Family and Juvenile Services at the Kentucky Administrative Office of the Courts.
Hi, I'm Pastor Ed Palmer. I'm a full-time pastor, and I'm the National Chair for the Coalition for Juvenile Justice. I also chair the Standing Committee for Racial and Ethnic Disparities for the Kentucky System of Care, or otherwise known as the State Interagency Council.
Hi, I'm Kim Stevenson. I'm the Director of Alternative Programs for Christian County Public Schools.
Hello, I'm Duncan Cavanaugh. I work for the Christian County Attorney's Office. My specific assignment is I'm the prosecutor in juvenile court, handle all juvenile court cases here in Christian County, Kentucky.
I'm John Lindsay Adams. I'm Christian District Judge, handle juvenile court matters in Christian County.
One of the primary purposes of the Capstone Project was to utilize the community resources and supports that exist in Christian County. The fact that this particular community does such a phenomenal job in working together was something that we knew could grow better outcomes for kids of color.
I think that we were a perfect convergence of agencies and resources, because I consider everybody that's participating in this very much that, a resource. We work well together. It's a continuum. It's not segmented. We have ready-made constant access to one another in our system. And I can speak to that in terms of Kim at the school system, and quite frankly, any other resources we need are available from the school system, as well as the county attorney's office. So it was just a really good fit with Georgetown and Pastor Palmer and Rachel and all of us plugging in the data and making this work, again, as a continuum and not a segmented approach. I don't know that too many other counties are as well situated as we are with such just a phenomenal team. And as I said, everybody that's participating here is agency aside, is a resource. And we've made ourselves available to one another. And that, I think, has enabled us to make great strides across the continuum.
The Capstone Project was able to do something in Christian County that I've not seen done often around Kentucky or other jurisdictions. And that is, instead of us meeting together, the folks you have on this call, and talking about community and their issues, they were able to bring community to the table. And so as a person responsible for a lot of the training, I saw more folks in community training and community conversations than I saw when we met as systems. And so the bridge of bringing community and the judges and prosecutors and the school districts together to work on these issues and find equitable outcomes and solutions for minority kids was phenomenal. It was all hands on deck, and I think we achieved that goal.
I'm an administrator over the Court Designated Worker Program for the state. And so we've been doing some work over the last almost 5 years around racial and ethnic disparities. When we came to Christian County, one of the primary goals with my staff was to sit down with them and their local data to really go through and peel back what their contact points were in the system when it came to racial and ethnic disparities. It's really easy within this work for us to say, I just work with the kids I get. I'm not the one who arrested these kids or charged these kids. I call the judge about detention. It's not up to me, or the prosecutor's the one that decides in some of these cases whether they're eligible or not for diversion. And so staff, it's very easy for them to say, it's not me. And so what we wanted to do first was to sit down with our staff and say, this is what the contact points mean to you around this work. These are what your outcomes look like. And these are what we consider to be practice or policy changes that we need to make internally to better support your work with kids of color. And we also needed to make sure that they understood what we would consider to be outcomes that, in the red work, we would call reduction goals. What would be those types of reduction goals that we would be looking for internally? And to make sure that those goals were very intentional, that they were things that were achievable, and that the staff themselves were driving those changes. Some of the proudest work that I feel like has happened around the red work in Christian County is the work that happened directly from the frontline staff in the CDW program. They owned their data, they owned the progress that they made, they own the responsibility that they have for the youth. And the culture shift there was something that they just needed the support to make sure happened. And they got that from not just an administrative level and leadership, but also from their community supports, from the judge, from all the people that they saw as their people of authority. So that type of culture change is intentional in the fact you're not just looking at your data, you're also building training components. All of our staff are required to go through implicit bias training. They're required to have some very intentional training around what does red actually even mean? How is it defined? And what is our responsibility connected to red? We also have required cultural competency trainings or cultural collision trainings. And staff also participate in a racial equity assessment every year to be able to give input back that guides our statewide training around racial and ethnic disparities.
I'm just going to give you one example of what this looks like and what we've done. So we had a girl over at alternative school that was pretty much didn't have any structure at home, said whatever she wanted to that came out of her mouth and whatever. So in conversation with her, of course, she was given a citation, talked to Duncan, talked to Judge Adams about this. It was due to the home life. So we knew structures needed to be put in place. So we did put the child in day treatment. And one of the things that was best about that is she said, I don't want to go. I said, we're doing what's best for you to help you out in this situation. That child right now has a full-time job, 3.0 GPA, graduated early. We didn't give up on her. We kept doing the things that were necessary to get her to where she needed to be. And those are the things we look at now. We're very intentional about looking at those students. What can we do to get them where they need to be? And I don't know that 5 years ago, we may have even done that. I mean, it was more of, we kind of went through the process as some compliance issues, but now we're really looking at how do we make them successful? Not what they've done wrong, but how do we make them successful from this point?
It's I'm trying to think how best to describe this. It's probably outside the context of juvenile court, and it may be at Kroger, or it might be at Lowe's, or it might be at Walmart when you run into one of the children or the families. There's all kinds of stuff in the book of Romans about not doing this, but worshiping silently. But I'll say this. It's a good feeling to see a difference made in the life of a child, and you may never know, but in those circumstances where you get a brief glimpse of a change that was made, and to know that change came about because in some part we looked at ourselves as a system first and recognized our shortcomings, and by virtue of that, this child may have more than a chance, and it makes it all worthwhile.
Okay, in terms of outcomes, one of the things we looked at that was kind of a surprise to me when we looked at the number was the amount of county attorney overrides there had been, which basically just means there are cases that would typically be CDW diversion cases that I can, as county attorney, override that and send to court. Until the numbers came out, I didn't realize how often that happened, and that our numbers were sort of out of whack there, which would the blame on that would probably fall pretty squarely on me, as that's my decision. But again, since we've taken these steps to try to be more intentional about looking at those things, those numbers have gone down significantly. I think something like 69% at the last number, the number of county attorney overrides, which just gives kids another opportunity to have their cases handled informally and not have to deal with court. So I think that's been one specific positive outcome.
So what I would say is, we've seen slight decreases in complaints for African American kids. We've seen decreases in detention at intake that's prior to going to court. We've seen increases in accessibility to diversion. We've seen decreases in both county attorney and judicial overrides. And this is all just within a year of the Capstone Project. And we're constantly refining. But I think the tale of the story is this. In the midst of all of these decreases that we're seeing, and those 2 points, the complaints and diversion and whether they go to detention are critical to the ultimate outcome for this kid. We can keep them out of cages, we can keep them on the right track. The minute we send them to the detention center, things go bad, and they go bad really quick. So we're seeing phenomenal things happen at those 3 contact points. But what these professionals aren't telling you is that in the midst of these decreases, they've had an increase of gun violence. Typically, when we see an increase of gun violence, everybody in the system overreacts. And every kid is going to jail. Every kid is a menace to society. Every kid is public enemy number 1. They're super predators. You know how we get. And yet these professionals have stayed true to the goals of making sure that each kid gets individual attention and individual reaction and response. That's in the midst. Every time we go, there was another shooting, and there was another shooting. And yet they remain faithful to the goals of the project and their commitment to kids to make sure that kids got what they needed and they weren't just responding to what they did. And so I couldn't be prouder of this group right here.
Couple things that we're taking away from this. There's 2 things. The one is we're going to be working with the SROs and the administrators of all of our schools. And actually Judge Adams and Duncan Cavanaugh will be there too to work through that process so that everybody's on the same page about what we're trying to do in this situation. The second thing is what we're doing in the district. We are developing a racial educational equity team. It's a committee. It will consist of a member of every school in our district. It consists of law enforcement, DJJ, DCBS. We've got preachers on there. So we can come together and look at the components of diversity inside our school. So we can look at the curriculum, the school culture, staffing, central office expectations. So we can develop a plan. So we are making sure it's equity, not just equitable. So that's what we're doing.
I think the big challenge is not to get complacent with this. So often when there's an issue highlighted or discussed for a period of time, we're laser focused on it for a while, and then we get distracted or busy or whatever. We can't let that happen here. We have to continue to look at numbers. We have to continue to engage the community. We have to continue to be collaborative as we have been. Because this issue, we certainly haven't solved it by any means. We're just reaching the surface of trying to address it. And it can be easy to be lackadaisical and let it revert. So all of us need to stay focused on it. And I think that's going to be our biggest challenge going forward is keeping the same focus on it that we have on it right now.